The first thing Ranger did wrong was bring the grenade back. He came out of the smoke with his ears flying, tongue lolling, tail cutting the air like a flag. Dust rolled over the compound wall in yellow sheets. Somewhere beyond the broken gate, men shouted in a language none of us understood quickly enough, and gunfire snapped through the morning heat. "Ranger!" his handler screamed. The dog heard his name and came faster. He had something in his mouth. At first, nobody understood what it was. Not through the dust. Not with the racket of boots, radios, engines, and the metallic clap of rounds striking tin and stone. The soldiers in the yard had already thrown themselves behind tires, concrete blocks, whatever cover they could find. Ranger had been released because the shouting started too close and his handler thought he'd go for the man at the gate. He didn't. He wagged at him. That was Ranger's problem. He loved people. All people. Wrong people. Armed people. Terrified people. Men trying to kill his handler. Men throwing things over walls. Men running at him with hate in their throats. Ranger had never understood hate. He understood hands. Hands threw balls. Hands offered food. Hands clapped against thighs and called him a good boy. Hands meant games. So when the object skittered across the dirt toward his handler's boots, Ranger did what every stupid, brilliant, doomed dog with a retrieving heart did. He fetched it. The soldier saw it when Ranger was 10 meters away. A grenade. Dull green. Metal. Live. The dog's paws hammered the ground. His eyes shone. His mouth was soft around the thing, careful not to bite down. His whole body said, "Look what I found." "Drop!" the handler roared. Ranger dropped it, right at his feet. For half a second there was no war. There was only a man staring down at death, and a dog, waiting for praise. The soldier grabbed the grenade with both hands and threw it as hard as terror allowed. It spun end over end, disappearing into the pale smear of smoke near the collapsed wall. Ranger barked once, a happy bark. Then he launched after it. "No!" The handler ran 2 steps after him. Someone grabbed the back of his vest and dragged him down. Ranger was already airborne. The explosion punched the world flat. Light swallowed the yard. Sound vanished, then came back as a pressure wave that slammed men into dirt and filled mouths with blood and grit. The handler screamed, but he could not hear himself. Flames licked at the ruined wall. Smoke surged. Gravel pattered down like hard rain. And in the middle of it, where the grenade had vanished, Ranger lay on his side. His legs twitched. His tail moved once. Then everything became shouting again. The kennel stank of bleach, fear, and wet concrete. I stood in the doorway with a borrowed lead in my hand, and mud drying on my boots, listening to a dog throw himself against a wire gate hard enough to rattle the bolt. "That's him," the shelter manager said. I didn't ask if she was sure. Every other dog in the rescue block had gone quiet the moment he started. Not relaxed quiet. Not sleepy quiet. The kind of quiet animals used when something damaged moved nearby and nobody knew whether to flee or freeze. The Malinois cross hit the gate again. Bang! His body was all angles and panic. Tan coat, black mask, ribs showing too clearly beneath muscle that had not forgotten work. He opened his mouth in a bark I felt more than heard, because he did not hear it himself. His ears flicked without purpose. His eyes were everywhere and nowhere. Ranger, military washout, police washout, failed bite dog, failed protection dog, failed everything according to the file, too friendly with targets, too eager to retrieve, too distractible, too deaf, too traumatized, too dangerous to rehome. I stepped closer. The manager caught my sleeve. "Don't put your fingers near the wire." I wasn't planning to. He redirects. I read that. He panics if he's touched from behind. I read that too. He doesn't respond to voice commands anymore. I know. He's scheduled for 4 o'clock. That one landed. Outside, a helicopter beat its way across the flat grey afternoon, heading toward the mountains. The sound passed over the tin roof and shivered through the kennels. Ranger felt it. His head snapped up, his pupils blew wide, black swallowing amber. He spun, lost his footing on the wet concrete, recovered, and launched himself at the back wall. Bang! Not anger. Terror. I pushed the manager's hand gently off my sleeve. "I need a search dog," I said. "You need that dog like you need a chainsaw in a bathtub." A laugh barked out of me before I could stop it. It sounded awful in that place, thin and cracked and nearly hysterical. The manager stared at me. "Sorry," I said. "Long day." It had been a long day for everyone. Hannah Vale had been missing for 36 hours in steep country west of town, scrub thick enough to swallow sound and tracks twisting through gullies that all looked the same after sunset. SES had gone in first. Police after that. Volunteers by the busload. Her face was on every phone, every petrol station window, every local news update. 18 years old, brown hair, green jacket. Experienced bushwalker, they kept saying. As if experience stopped rocks from shifting, storms from closing in, men from lying, bodies from failing. I had gone to the search base that morning with my first aid kit, spare water, and the ugly certainty that doing something would feel better than sitting at home, watching Hannah's school photo brighten and dim on the television. I had asked for a dog team. The coordinator had laughed without smiling. Every certified rescue dog was already out, already booked, already too far away, already exhausted, already searching another sector. Weather was coming. The terrain was bad. Time was worse. Then someone mentioned the failed dog in holding. Not as a solution, as a joke. I followed the joke here. Ranger began to pace. 3 strides one way, turn, 3 strides back. His paws slapped water. His tail hung low. There was a scar along one shoulder and another pale line through the fur near his jaw. His orange working harness lay in a plastic tub outside the run, chewed at one corner. A label on it still said Ranger in block letters. I crouched sideways to the gate, not facing him, not looming, just there. He noticed. His pacing faltered. I lifted one hand, palm down, slow. The manager made a small warning sound behind me. Ranger's nose came through the gap at the bottom of the wire. It twitched. I smelled like eucalyptus smoke, sweat, rain, and the chicken sandwich I had eaten in the car without tasting. He sniffed again. Then he sneezed. "Charming," I said. His eyes fixed on my mouth, but there was no comprehension. Only movement, shape, breath. Deaf, not stupid. I put the lead on the floor and slid it under the gate with 2 fingers. He flinched back so fast his claws scraped sparks from the concrete, then he crept forward. He sniffed the clip, touched it with his nose, picked up the end of the lead and shook it once. Hard. The manager sighed. "He thinks everything is a toy." "Good. That is not good. It's something." Ranger threw the lead in the air. It slapped wetly against his own face. For the first time since I arrived, his tail gave one uncertain thump. I smiled before I could stop myself. "There you are," I whispered, though he couldn't hear me. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I ignored it. Ranger picked up the lead again and brought it to the gate. Not neatly. Not trained. He shoved it through the wire until the clip caught. Then he stared at me as if we had reached the part where I was supposed to understand the rules. Fetch. Return. Reward. A dog who brought death back because nobody had taught him that not everything thrown was meant to be chased. My phone vibrated again. The manager checked hers. Her expression changed. It was a small change. The kind people tried to hide in hospitals and search bases and police stations. A tightening around the mouth. A drop in the eyes. A professional rearrangement of the face before bad news walked into the room. I stood. "What?" She looked at the screen. "What?" I asked again. "They've found someone." The kennel block seemed to tilt. Ranger barked at the movement of my body. No sound reached him. He saw my shoulders go rigid, saw the manager go still, saw the whole air change, and panic sparked through him again. "Alive?" I said. The manager did not answer quickly enough. The helicopter outside was gone now. Only rain ticked against the roof. My phone vibrated a 3rd time. I pulled it out. There were 6 missed calls, 2 messages, One from Lauren, who never sent voice messages unless she could not trust her hands to type. I pressed play. For a second there was only wind, then Lauren's voice, raw and flattened. "Britt, don't drive to the base, just call me. Please call me before you hear it from—" The message cut off. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. The manager said my name, though I didn't remember giving it to her. Ranger whined, high, thin, broken. He had felt the silence after explosions. Maybe he knew what happened when humans stopped moving properly. Maybe all damaged creatures recognized the exact moment hope left a body. I shoved the phone into my pocket. "Open the gate." The manager blinked. "What?" "Open it. This is not the moment to make an emotional decision." "No," I said. "This is exactly the moment." He is not a rescue dog. He was. He failed. So have I. That shut her up. Not because it was clever, it wasn't. It came out ugly, with too much truth under it. She looked toward the office, toward paperwork, toward the clock that was crawling toward 4. "He needs an experienced handler," she said. "I train difficult dogs. Pet dogs, grooming clients, reactive shepherds with bite histories. Not this." I reached for Ranger's orange harness. It was damp and smelled faintly of old sweat, kennel disinfectant, and a dog. The patch with his name had frayed at the edge. "He has nowhere else to go." "That does not make you qualified." "No," I said, "but it makes me here." Ranger watched the harness in my hands. Something passed over him. Not calm. Memory. His body lowered. His ears twitched. His eyes locked onto the straps. Work lived somewhere inside him still, buried under blast noise and confusion and the terrible betrayal of a world that had gone silent. I held the harness flat against the gate so he could smell it. He did not lunge. He pressed his nose to the name patch. Then he sat. The manager let out a breath. I almost laughed again, but it would have come out as a sob. "Good boy," I mouthed, his head tilted. He could not hear the words, but maybe he knew the shape of them. Maybe handlers had smiled those words at him before everything went white. Maybe praise had weight even without sound. The manager unlocked the gate with the slow care of someone defusing a bomb. Ranger stayed sitting until the gap widened. Then he bolted. Not at me. Past me. Straight into the corridor, skidding on wet concrete, lead trailing like a snake behind him. The manager swore. I threw myself sideways and grabbed the end before he reached the outer door. He hit the limit and bounced. For one stupid second we stared at each other. Me on my knees in kennel water, him braced like a sled dog, both of us equally shocked by the other's existence. Then he trotted back, picked up the loop of lead, and dropped it in my lap. The manager said, "You have got to be kidding me." I wiped water from my chin. Ranger wagged. "Not much, just enough." "There's the patch of humour," I muttered. The manager didn't understand. Good. I clipped the lead properly and moved slowly, showing him every motion before I made it. Harness overhead. Pause. Strap under belly. Pause. Clip. He flinched at the click but didn't bite. When my fingers brushed the scar near his shoulder, he trembled so hard the metal tag on his collar danced. I kept my hands light. He leaned into me. Only for a second. Then he remembered himself and stepped away, embarrassed in the way dogs could be when need escaped them. My phone rang. Lauren. I looked at the name until Ranger nosed my hand. The manager's voice softened. "You should answer." I did. "Britt," Lauren said. I could hear people behind her, radios, rain, a man giving instructions too gently. "I know," I said. A pause. "I'm sorry." The words did not enter me properly. They stayed outside, tapping at the glass. Hannah was found. Hannah was dead. The sentence waited somewhere nearby, patient and monstrous, but I would not look at it yet. If I looked at it, I would fold onto the wet concrete and not get up. Ranger bumped my thigh. Hard. I looked down. He had found a tennis ball under the bench. Filthy, split at one seam, probably older than the building. He held it delicately between his front teeth, His eyes were bright with desperate hope, not happy, not healed, just asking. Throw. Lauren was crying quietly in my ear. The manager watched me as if I might break. Ranger shoved the ball against my hand. I took it. No grenades? I told him. He wagged. I threw the ball gently down the corridor, away from the door, away from glass, away from anything that could kill him. He exploded after it, paws slipping, body crooked, magnificent and ridiculous and half mad with the joy of a job simple enough to survive. Fetch, return, reward. He brought the ball back and dropped it at my feet. This time nothing blew up. I signed the papers with rainwater on my sleeves and Lauren still on the phone, neither of us saying much. The manager gave me medication, warnings, a muzzle, photocopied notes, and the look of a woman who expected to read about me later. Ranger refused to get into the car until I climbed into the back first. Then he jumped in, landed on my stomach, stood on my ribs, and tried to place the tennis ball in my mouth. I made a sound that was almost laughter. Almost. He settled with his head on my boot and the ball under his chin. When the car door shut, he startled so hard he smacked his skull against the seat. I touched the floor twice with my fingertips where he could see. He stared. I did it again. 2 taps. His breathing slowed. By the time we reached my grooming salon, night had folded itself over the town. Police lights still flashed silently on the television in the corner. Rain striped the windows. My clippers, shampoos, towels, and appointment cards waited in neat rows, belonging to a life that had ended sometime between morning and now. Ranger walked in, sniffed 3 poodles' worth of old gossip from the floor, and crawled under my grooming table. He turned around 3 times. Then he slept. A deaf, shell-shocked wreck of a dog on death row, snoring beneath a table where I trimmed spaniels and talked people out of shaving their double-coated huskies in summer. I sat on the floor beside him because standing felt ambitious. The television showed Hannah's school photo, then a reporter outside the search base, then file footage of volunteers in orange vests. Ranger's paw twitched in his sleep. The caption changed. Search coordinator resigns after Hannah Vale case. I stared at the words. Under the table, Ranger opened one eye. He did not hear the news, but he saw me stop breathing. Ranger found my sock in the laundry basket, carried it into the salon, and dropped it at my feet as if he had discovered a missing child. I looked down at the sock. He looked up at me. His tail wagged once, hopeful and cautious, like optimism still hurt if he used too much of it. That, I said, was not hidden. He could not hear me, of course, but he watched my mouth with grave concentration, as if the shape of words might eventually make sense if he cared hard enough. I held up the sock and pointed to the laundry basket. He glanced at the basket, then at my hand, then at the treat pouch clipped to my jeans. His ears pricked. No, I said, signing the flat palm I had invented for weight. Absolutely not, he sat. Badly. Crooked, one hip out, front paws sliding on the polished floor. But he sat, and his eyes stayed on me instead of bouncing around the room looking for threats. 3 weeks earlier, the click of a shampoo bottle cap had sent him under the grooming table, shaking so hard his collar tags rattled against the leg. Now he sat in front of me, thin but filling out, scarred but glossy from fish oil and proper meals, waiting for the universe to become fair. It did not. I put the sock back. Ranger groaned. The sound startled him. He felt it in his own chest, jerked his head toward the noise, and then blinked at me in accusation, as if I had made him complain. I laughed. It escaped before I could stop it. A small cracked thing that did not belong in the same room as the grief sitting inside me. Ranger wagged harder at the sight of my face changing. That was the trouble with him. He rewarded signs of life. I had turned the back room of my grooming salon into a poor imitation of a search dog training shed. It smelled of wet towels, disinfectant, dog biscuits, and the eucalyptus oil I used when old Mrs. Keene's arthritic spaniel came in for nail trims. Cardboard boxes lined one wall. Scent tins sat on the bench beside scissors and combs. I had cut up bits of old clothing, labelled jars, watched too many videos, and read manuals until my eyes burned. I had no official team, no permission, no idea whether any search coordinator would let me within 50 metres of a live search area after the mess at the kennels. But I had Ranger. And Ranger had a nose. Mostly he used it to locate contraband toast. I took a square of cotton from a jar, rubbed it between my hands, then showed it to him. His nostrils flared. I let him sniff, touched 2 fingers to my eyes, then pointed toward the line of boxes. Find. He bounded to the first box, knocked it over, stuck his whole head inside, and came back with a tennis ball I had not put there. I stared at him. He dropped the ball at my feet. A perfect retrieve. Completely useless. His tail beat the air. I rubbed both hands down my face. You are going to bankrupt me in chicken. He watched my mouth. I did not reward him. His tail slowed. I picked up the ball, put it behind my back, and guided him again to the boxes. Find. This time he sniffed the first box, then the second, then he sneezed into the third and sat on the fourth. The cotton was in the fifth. He had crushed it. He still got chicken. Not because he had done well, but because he had kept working. Because he had not panicked when a motorbike coughed past outside. Because he had not bolted when a metal bowl shifted in the sink. Because he had looked to me when he was confused, instead of trying to chew his way through the door. Progress was not a straight track through clean bushland. It was a deaf dog sitting on the wrong box and looking proud. It was me cutting chicken into pieces so small they were almost suggestions. It was both of us staying alive through breakfast. I worked full-time around him. Dogs came and went from the salon, and Ranger learned their scents like gossip. He watched from behind the baby gate while I clipped cavoodles, washed kelpies, trimmed old terriers who hated their feet touched, and soothed anxious owners who spoke to me in the bright, brittle voice people used after funerals. They did not say Hannah's name unless they had to. Searching for her had ended in recovery, not rescue. That was what the news said. Recovery. A clean word. A professional word. A word that did not show mud under fingernails. Rain in gullies. Orange vests moving slower on the depressing hike back to base camp. Hannah Vale had been found too late. Not by me. Not by Ranger. Not in time. I kept grooming dogs. I kept feeding Ranger. I kept hiding socks and cotton squares and bits of old gloves. I kept waking at 3 a.m. with the same thought lodged under my ribs. If I had had a dog sooner. It was not reasonable. Grief was rarely interested in being reasonable. One afternoon I took Ranger to the reserve behind the football oval. The grass had gone silver at the edges from winter frost, and the gums threw long strips of shade across the track. I clipped a long line to his harness and tucked one of Hannah's old wristbands into a hollow near a fallen log. I should not have used it. I knew that. The wristband had been in my glove box since the summer market, faded blue fabric with a tiny sun embroidered on it. Hannah had bought it because she said it looked like something a cheerful pirate would wear. She had tied it around my wrist, then laughed when I asked if cheerful pirates existed. They do if I say they do, Britt. She had been 18, sunburned across the nose, alive with the unfair radiance of someone who had never had to doubt that the next track would lead somewhere good. I stood beside a stringy bark and pressed the wristband to my mouth before hiding it. Ranger watched me. Dogs saw too much. Or maybe wounded dogs did. I gave him the scent from my fingers and made the sign. Find. He trotted in 3 circles, followed a trail of possum droppings, tried to eat a feather, and then discovered the wristband by accident when his lead tangled around the log. He pulled it free and carried it to me. Soft mouth. Careful. For once, he did not shake it like prey or drop it in mud. He placed it in my palm and stepped back. I sank onto the log. The bush tilted. Hannah had walked beside me on a track like this 6 months before she vanished. Not this track. A better one, higher up, where the air smelled of tea tree and hot dust, and the world opened suddenly onto a lookout with blue ridges layered to the horizon. She had teased me for checking the weather twice. You know clouds don't obey apps, she said. Clouds don't obey 18-year-olds either. They like me more. Everyone likes you more. She bumped my shoulder with hers. You like me exactly the right amount. I had looked away. The sun had been too bright. That was the excuse I gave myself. Sun in my eyes, sweat on my back, a magpie calling somewhere down the slope. Hannah standing too close, her sleeve brushing mine, her smile softer than it should have been. She had stopped on the track and touched my arm. Not a grab, not even a hold, just 2 fingers against my sleeve. Do you ever get lonely? She asked. I remembered the question more clearly than I remembered my answer. I remembered the shape of her face when she asked it. Not flirting exactly, not childish, not simple. Open. That was the thing about Hannah. She met the world with doors unlocked. I had been 32. Old enough to know better, young enough to feel the pull of her attention like heat. You should be careful asking grown women questions like that, I said, trying to make it light. Her smile faltered. I am grown. Barely. I didn't mean. I know. The space between us changed. I had done that. I had put the fence up because somebody had to, because affection could be true and still not be safe, because she had trusted me, and I refused to turn that trust into something I could not give back cleanly. Hannah looked out over the valley. I just wondered, she said. Then she grinned too brightly and walked ahead, swinging her arms, calling back that if she ever got lost, I had better come find her. I had laughed. I hated myself for laughing. Ranger nudged my hand. The wristband lay across my palm like a strip of sky. I fed him 3 pieces of chicken because I could not bear the weight of his patience. By the end of the month, he had gained 4 kilos, learned 5 hand signals, and destroyed 7 tennis balls, 1 towel, 2 cardboard boxes, and the corner of a tax receipt I had needed. He slept under my grooming table as if it were a bunker and followed me from room to room with the grim devotion of a soldier assigned to guard a fool. He still panicked at sudden vibrations. He still woke snapping at dreams. He still sometimes forgot where he was and hurled himself toward doors that were already open. But he came back to me. More often than not, he came back. That was why I took him to the public volunteer meeting at the community hall, even though 3 people advised me not to, and one said, "Isn't that the grenade dog?" as if Ranger had enlisted voluntarily. The hall smelled of instant coffee, damp coats, and old basketball varnish. Folding chairs scraped across the floor. Posters about snakebite, hypothermia, and emergency beacons lined the walls. People spoke quietly, the way they had been speaking everywhere since Hannah. Raw was the word for the town. Not broken, not healed, raw. I stood at the back with Ranger between my legs, one hand resting lightly on his harness. He wore a yellow sleeve that said "Deaf Dog, Do Not Approach," which naturally made half the room stare at him. A woman at the front arranged papers on the lectern. Lauren Ashford. I knew her by reputation before I knew her face. Former search and rescue coordinator. Retired after 20 years at that demanding work. Sharp, difficult, brilliant. The sort of woman men described as intimidating when they meant she did not soothe their egos for free. She had come back after the sudden resignation of the former search and rescue officer. After Hannah. Lauren was older than me by maybe 15 years, with cropped silver-brown hair, a weathered face, and eyes that moved over the room like they were mapping terrain. She wore a navy fleece, no jewellery except a watch, and boots that looked as if they had crossed rivers and won arguments. She did not look comforting. Good, I thought. Then she looked at me and I wished she had not. Her gaze dropped to Ranger, took in the harness, the lean body, the scars, the weight still missing from his hips, the tension in his legs. Then it rose to my face. No smile, no pity. The meeting began. Lauren spoke about protocols, sign-in sheets, search grids, radio discipline, chain of command, what volunteers could do, what they could not do, why enthusiasm without training got people killed and created more searches. I disliked her by the 7th sentence. I also could not stop watching her hands. They were steady, capable, square-palmed. When someone interrupted with a question that was mostly grief wearing a high-visibility vest, Lauren listened without softening the rules. We all wanted a different outcome, she said. Wanting did not change terrain, weather, or time. Next time, we do better by being prepared before someone disappears. A metal chair collapsed near the side wall. The crash detonated through Ranger's body. He launched upward, twisting, claws scrabbling on the varnished floor. A woman screamed. Someone dropped a coffee urn lid, adding a second bright clang. Ranger's eyes went black. He lunged toward empty space, not attacking, not seeing, trapped in a blast no one else heard. I stepped in front of him, not grabbing, never grabbing. I slammed my palm down in his line of sight, down. He shook, his teeth flashed. People backed away. I held the signal. My heart battered my ribs, but my hand stayed flat. Ranger's front legs folded, his chest hit the floor. He panted, wild-eyed, body trembling so hard the lead hummed. I crouched slowly, touched 2 fingers to the floor twice. Our signal. Here. Now. With me. He stared at my hand, his breathing hitched. I tapped again. He crawled forward and pressed his head against my boot. Silence spread through the hall. Not real silence. Ranger could not hear it. I could. The embarrassed kind, the frightened kind, the judging kind. Lauren stepped down from the front and walked toward us. Every protective, stupid part of me rose. "He's under control," I said before she spoke. Lauren stopped at a safe distance. Her eyes were on Ranger, not me. "No," she said, "he's under you." I flushed. "That's not... It's better than nothing." I hated that she was right. Ranger lifted his head and looked at her. She did not reach for him, did not coo, did not lean over him. She simply stood, weight balanced, hands visible, as if she understood that survival sometimes needed space. "What's his name?" she asked. "Ranger." "I know what he was called. What does he answer to?" I glanced down at the deaf dog pressed against my boot. Hand signals, movement, food, occasionally theft. One corner of Lauren's mouth shifted. Not quite a smile. Interesting woman. After the meeting, people drifted around us in a wide current. A few avoided looking at Ranger, a few looked too much. Lauren waited until the hall had mostly emptied before approaching again. "You're Brittany Cole," she said. "Britt, you took him from Mardale Animal Rescue." "I adopted him." "You took him on Euthanasia Day." "That's still adoption, just with worse paperwork." This time the almost smile arrived properly, then vanished. "He was a failed military dog," she said. "Police too, apparently. He likes criminals. He retrieves explosives. He retrieves everything." "That's not as reassuring as you think." Ranger chose that moment to nose open my treat pouch and steal 3 pieces of chicken. Lauren watched him chew. "He's clever," she said. "He's a menace." "Those often overlap." I did not want to like her voice. It had gravel in it, and restraint, and the kind of calm that came from having seen the worst thing and still packed a thermos the next morning. She looked at me then, properly. "Grief and rescue work are a volatile combination." The word struck too close. "You don't know anything about my grief. I know you brought a traumatized deaf dog to a public meeting less than a month after a girl you loved died in a search area." My throat closed. People were stacking chairs at the far end of the hall. Someone laughed awkwardly near the kitchen. The normal world continued, rude and impossible. "I didn't..." I began. Lauren's face changed. Not pity. Recognition. "I'm not asking what you did or didn't do with that love," she said. "I'm saying grief makes promises it can't safely keep." Anger came easier than pain. He has potential. He has danger. So do some men, and you let men in to search for a lone girl. That earned me a look sharp enough to cut rope. Then, unexpectedly, Lauren laughed once. Ranger startled at the movement of her shoulders but did not bolt. He looked to me. I tapped the floor. He settled. Lauren saw it. Of course she saw it. Her eyes missed nothing. "You've done some work," she said. "I'm doing work every day." With what goal? The honest answer sat between us like a live thing. To find the next Hannah. To arrive before recovery became the word. To stop seeing a blue wristband in my sleep. To train him properly, I said. Search scent, retrieve indication if barking isn't reliable. He can work visually. He wants a job. And you? I looked at Ranger. He leaned against my leg, warm and too thin and alive only because I had refused to be sensible. I want a job in rescue too. Lauren was quiet for a long moment. Rain began outside, soft at first, then harder on the hall roof. Ranger felt the vibration and pressed closer, but he did not panic. Lauren noticed that as well. "Saturday," she said. "What?" "Training ground behind the old quarry, 8 in the morning. If you want him assessed properly, you can come." Hope moved so fast through me it frightened me. Lauren held up a hand. "I will not indulge fantasies." "There are no fantasies." "There are always fantasies. Hero fantasies, redemption fantasies, punishment fantasies. People imagine search work will absolve them of being alive when someone else isn't." I hated her again. Fully. Instantly. It was a relief. "I said I'll come," I told her. "I said I'll assess the dog, not approve him, not approve you. And if I think either of you is unsafe, I'll say so in front of whoever needs to hear it." Ranger burped chicken. Lauren looked down at him. He wagged faintly, as if all difficult conversations could be improved by poultry. For the first time that day, I smiled and meant it. "Saturday," I said. Lauren nodded once, already turning away. "And Britt?" I looked up. Her eyes were steady, unreadable, and far too sharp for comfort. "Bring better rewards. He's going to need them." Saturday began with mud. Not dramatic mud. Not the sort that swallowed boots and made men on television swear at cameras. Just ordinary winter mud, thin and brown and patient, waiting in every wheel rut and low patch behind the old quarry. It clung to Ranger's paws before we had properly left the car. It streaked my jeans, spotted my jacket, and somehow ended up on my cheek before 8 in the morning. Ranger thought it was magnificent. He bounded out of the hatchback as far as the lead allowed, hit the end of it, remembered nothing about dignity, and sneezed directly into a tuft of wet grass. "Excellent start," I muttered. He turned at the movement of my mouth and wagged. The training ground spread beyond the gravel track in uneven fields and scrubby bush. A line of gums marked the start of denser country, with the old quarry face rising pale and blunt behind them. Beyond that, the land folded into gullies and regrowth, the same kind of bush that looked harmless from a road and became a maze once a person was frightened, tired, or injured. A dozen volunteers had already gathered near a white ute with orange magnetic signs on the doors. Some wore official jackets, some carried radios. Others looked like they had bought hiking boots the previous afternoon and were hoping enthusiasm would count as experience. Lauren Ashford stood beside a folding table, pinning a map beneath 2 rocks and a thermos. She did not look like someone who had been hauled back at short notice from retirement. She looked like someone in full command, someone strong enough not to fold at the first traumatic outcome. "Morning," she said without looking up. I lifted a hand, then remembered Ranger and made him sit beside me with a closed fist angled down. He sat, crooked but promptly. Lauren noticed. Her eyes flicked once to him, once to me, and then back to the map. "No public meeting nerves today?" "He slept badly," I said, "which means he'll either work hard or attempt to dismantle your quarry." "Good. We'll find out which." There was nothing warm in it, but there was no cruelty either. Lauren did not waste friendliness. I had begun to suspect she considered it like battery power or clean water. Useful, limited, not to be spilled for decoration. She started training exactly at 8, No motivational speech, no welcome circle, no nonsense. She assigned roles, checked radios, confirmed first aid kits, and made every person give their name, emergency contact, and experience level. When one man laughed and said, "Been walking these hills since before you girls were born," Lauren handed him a compass and asked him for a grid reference. He gave her a blank look. "Good," she said. "You're here to learn." I nearly smiled. Ranger pressed against my knee, vibrating with the number of living bodies, strange smells, damp wool, old coffee, boot leather, and excitement. I tapped 2 fingers to my eyes. "Watch me." His gaze snapped up. That was new enough that pride caught me under the ribs. Lauren saw that too. "You've got his focus," she said. "Sometimes. Sometimes is where we all start." Then she put us to work. The first exercise was basic obedience under field conditions. It sounded insultingly simple until Ranger tried to chase a raven, investigate a sandwich wrapper, and climb into the back of an ambulance training vehicle because someone had once dropped sausage in it. "Raised fist," Lauren reminded me. I lifted my fist above shoulder height. Ranger stopped, not immediately, not cleanly. He skidded 2 steps, swung his head, and looked around as if someone else might have called him. Then he found my body, my hand, my face. I brought 2 fingers to my eyes. "Watch me." His attention locked. "Palm down. Lie down." He dropped in the wet grass with a theatrical thump. A few volunteers murmured. Lauren said nothing, which from her felt louder than praise. We moved on to returns. I sent him out only a few meters at first, then brought my hand to my heart. Return. Ranger came like a released spring, mud flying, ears back, eyes bright. He hit my legs so hard I staggered. "Control the landing," Lauren said. "He's enthusiastic." "So is a landslide." I bit back an answer because she was right. That became the theme of the morning. Lauren was almost always right, and it was profoundly inconvenient. She taught without softening the shape of truth. Real searches, she told us, were not heroic stampedes into trees. They were maps, math, weather, radios, and tired people making decisions with consequences. Grid searches work only if the grid is actually covered, she said, dragging a pencil across the map. If your line drifts because you're chatting, tired, cold, or trying to avoid blackberries, you leave holes. Missing people fit in holes. The group went quiet. She placed small flags in the mud to demonstrate spacing, then had us walk a mock line through scrub. It was slow, humiliating work. The man who had walked these hills forever drifted left within 5 minutes. A young woman stepped over a child's red glove because she was watching her footing. I would have missed a strip of blue fabric tied low to a branch if Ranger had not dragged me toward it, tail high with triumph. He grabbed the fabric and tried to retrieve the entire branch. "Not the tree," I said. He pulled harder. Lauren's mouth twitched. "He has possession drive. He has opinions. He has potential." The words landed differently than they had in the hall. Not like a warning this time, like a fact under examination. When the group paused for water, Lauren talked scent. She used flour tossed in the air to show how wind broke and curled around trees, gullies, vehicles, bodies. She made us stand still and feel the morning shift against our faces. She pointed to the quarry wall and explained how heat, shade, water, and terrain could carry scent away from where the missing person actually was. "A dog is not a magic arrow," she said. "A dog gives you information. You still have to think." Ranger, apparently offended by not being magic, stuck his nose into her open kit bag. She closed it with one boot. He looked impressed. So was I. I did not want to be. Respect was a dangerous thing. It made room inside you. It rearranged furniture. It forced you to admit that someone you had decided to dislike might have earned something better. Lauren had earned something better before morning tea. She knew how weather behaved in gullies before rain. She knew when volunteers started lying about being tired. She knew which families needed jobs to keep from collapsing and which needed someone to sit beside them in silence. She knew that probability zones were not guesses but living calculations built from last known point, terrain, age, health, daylight, temperature, and behavior. "Most harm happens when people rush toward where they hope the person is," she said. "Search management means sending resources where the person is most likely to be even when everyone is screaming at you to go somewhere else. Her voice did not change, but something in it carried weight. I wondered how many times she had been screamed at. I wondered how many times she had been wrong. Compassion, I learned, was not always softness. Sometimes it was refusing to let panic waste daylight. By late morning, Ranger was mud from chest to toes and incandescent with purpose. Lauren set a short scent problem for him using one of the volunteers as a subject. The woman walked a looping track through knee-high grass and tucked herself behind a cluster of wattles. Ranger watched her go, outraged that anyone was being allowed to disappear without his permission. I held his harness and waited. Lauren stood beside me. Don't send until he's looking at you, not her. He knows where she went. Does he? I looked at Ranger. His eyes were fixed on the last place the woman had been visible. His whole body leaned forward. I brought 2 fingers to my eyes. Nothing. Again. His head twitched. Again. Finally, he looked at me. I swept my arm wide toward the search area. Search. He launched. For the first 20 seconds, he was terrible. He bounded exactly along the visible path, nose high, brain absent. Then the wind shifted. He hit scent like an invisible wall, spun left, overshot, corrected, and dropped his nose. His entire body changed. No longer frantic, no longer hungry for reward. Working. He quartered clumsily across the grass, paused at a patch of disturbed weeds, circled, then drove toward the wattles. A muffled laugh came from behind them. Ranger shoved his head through the branches and emerged with the volunteer's glove clenched in his mouth. Not the volunteer. The glove. He galloped back to me and presented it with a wet, shining pride that made my throat hurt. I gave him chicken. Praise he could not hear, and both hands rubbing hard into the fur at his neck. Lauren crouched to examine the track he had taken. He ignored the visual after the scent change, she said. Yes, he problem-solved. Yes, he also robbed the subject. He's still learning evidence protocols. Ranger sat on my boot and ate mud. Lauren stood. Again. So we did it again. And again. Harder each time. By lunch, Ranger was exhausted enough to lie beside my chair with his head on my foot. I fed him bits of chicken and watched Lauren review search maps with 2 team leaders. She did not perform authority. She simply held it. People leaned in when she spoke. They argued with her sometimes, and she listened. Then she changed her mind if the evidence required it and did not if it did not. That impressed me more than certainty. Certainty was easy. I had been certain on the day Hannah went missing that she was just late. The memory arrived without warning, not the whole day, never the whole day. My mind had protected itself by breaking it into fragments, sharp and useless as glass. A weather alert changing from yellow to orange. Hannah laughing the week before, saying clouds liked her. My phone face down on the counter while I rinsed shampoo from a spaniel's ears. A missed call. 1 missed call. A voicemail I did not listen to until after the first Facebook post. Has anyone seen Hannah Vale? Went walking near Bellbird Track this morning and hasn't come home. Please share. Appeared. I remembered the wet weight of the spaniel towel in my hands, the way my fingers went numb before the rest of me understood. The tiny spinning circle on the screen as comments loaded. People tagging people. People saying she was probably with friends. People saying teenagers were like that. People saying they had seen her car. Her car. Her car parked near Bush. Her walking alone because she loved life too much to wait for anyone to be free. Because sunlight on leaves was enough reason for her to go. Because she collected moments the way other people collected coins. A good cloud. A weird mushroom. A rock shaped like a heart. The perfect swimming hole. A track she had not taken yet. Because I had taught her how to check weather, how to carry water, how to read trail markers, and still somehow believed caution could be given to someone like Hannah, as if it were a jacket she would remember to wear. My chest tightened. I stood too fast. Ranger lifted his head. I turned away from the group and walked toward the tree line, but I made it only 3 steps before the air broke. A sound came out of me, small, strangled, humiliating. I pressed the heel of my hand to my mouth. Ranger was instantly on his feet, lead dragging. He came to me without a signal, shoved his body against my legs and looked up, frantic because grief had no scent he could retrieve. I dropped to a crouch and buried my face in his neck. He smelled of mud, dog, chicken and rain. I cried into him. Not cleanly, not beautifully, not in a way that taught anyone anything. I cried because Hannah had touched my sleeve and asked if I got lonely. Because she had been 18 and alive and impossible. Because I had loved her enough to refuse her, and now refusal felt like I'd hurt her and never had the chance to see her grow to an adult when I might have been able to declare. I have always loved you, Hannah. You were too young. Oh my God, you were too young to die, Hannah. A shadow fell across the grass. Lauren. I stiffened. Sorry, I said, though I did not know what I was apologizing for. The grief, the interruption, the fact that Ranger and I were both leaking damage in public. Lauren did not come closer. Take your time. That nearly made it worse. I wiped my face with my sleeve and hated the mud streak left behind. I'm fine. No. I looked up sharply. She was watching me with that same controlled expression, but her voice had gentled by half a degree. With Lauren, half a degree was practically an embrace. I didn't ask you to be fine, she said. Behind her, the volunteers were pretending not to look. Ranger leaned harder against me. Lauren glanced toward the group, then back at me. I know you don't like me. I blinked. What? You don't like me. That's all right. I'm not here to be liked. But if training with me is making this worse, there may be another option later. The absurdity of it cut through the tears. You think I'm crying because I don't like you? Lauren's brows drew together slightly. I think grief attaches itself to whatever structure is nearest. Today, that appears to be me. I stared at her. Then I almost laughed, which came out badly because my nose was running and my chest hurt. I'm crying because I missed her call. Lauren went very still. I had not meant to say it. The words hung there between us, impossible to put back. Ranger nudged my hand, asking for something he could understand. I gave him the hand-to-heart signal. Return. He was already there, but he pressed closer anyway. Lauren's face did not fill with the quick, greedy sympathy people sometimes offered when they scented tragedy. She did not ask for details. She did not tell me it was not my fault. She did not say Hannah knew I loved her. People loved saying things they could not possibly know. Instead, Lauren said, "That is a heavy thing to carry during training." I looked down. It's mine. For now. I did not know what she meant, and I did not ask. After a moment, she said, "The previous coordinator, Mark Delaney, is away on grief leave." I looked up. I knew Mark. Everyone knew Mark, broad-shouldered, kind-eyed, always with a thermos and a joke for nervous volunteers. He had led Hannah's search until the end, and then I had stopped seeing him at the pub, the servo, anywhere. Because of Hannah? I asked. Lauren nodded once. He took her recovery hard. Harder than he expected, I think. He may return when he's received enough care and rest to do the work safely again. Received, not recovered. The word mattered. I could tell by the way Lauren chose it. So, she continued, if you stay around long enough, you may have a more sensitive search and rescue trainer in future. There it was again. That dry edge, almost self-mockery, offered like a shield. I wiped my face properly and stood. Ranger rose with me. You think you're not sensitive? Lauren's mouth flattened. I think people tend to prefer comfort when they are wounded. Comfort doesn't stop volunteers from leaving holes in grids. No. Comfort doesn't understand scent drift. No. Comfort doesn't tell grieving people not to waste daylight. Something shifted in her eyes. I felt the truth form before I had decided to speak it. I don't need a softer trainer, I said. I need someone who would have trained people to find Hannah before it was too late. Lauren looked at me for a long time. The training ground had gone quiet in that way. Groups went quiet when they pretended not to be listening and failed. I don't dislike you, I said. That was not entirely true. Or it had been true yesterday and was becoming less true by the hour. Feelings did not update cleanly. I don't know what I think of you, I amended, but I want to work with you. I want to learn this properly, from you. Lauren gave no visible sign that it mattered, but she looked away first. Then wash your face, she said. You have mud on it, and your dog is about to eat a radio. I turned. Ranger had indeed found a radio. Ranger! He froze with the antenna in his mouth. Raised fist. Stop. He dropped it, mostly. One of the volunteers snorted. Another muttered, not quietly enough. Great. Lauren's starting a lesbian lifeline for every broken stray in town. The words sliced through the damp air. Brittany, Ranger, Hannah's memory. All of us reduced to something inconvenient, pathetic, untidy. Lost causes gathered by a woman too stubborn to leave them in the ditch. Heat rushed to my face. I stepped forward, but Lauren was faster without moving much at all. She turned her head. The volunteer, a red-faced man named Pete, who had spent most of the morning being corrected, suddenly became fascinated by his boots. A lifeline, Lauren said coolly, is only ridiculous to people who've never needed one. No one spoke. Ranger, sensing drama but not context, picked up the radio again. I took it gently from his mouth. The phrase stayed. A lifeline, not rescue, not salvation, not absolution. A line thrown across distance, something to hold until strength returned, or help arrived, or both. I looked at Ranger's muddy face, at Lauren's steady shoulders, at the grey line of bush beyond the quarry. For the first time since Hannah, my goals sharpened into something less frantic than punishment. I wanted to become useful, not healed, not forgiven, not heroic, useful. We trained for another hour. Lauren let me work Ranger on a longer problem through mixed scrub. He found the subject late, after losing scent twice and trying to retrieve a discarded water bottle once. But he found her. More importantly, when confused, he came back to my hand-to-heart signal instead of spiraling into panic. Return. Reset. Try again. Those were not bad rules for a dog. Near 2 o'clock, rain started properly. Volunteers pulled hoods up, packed flags, folded maps into plastic sleeves. Lauren was reviewing notes under the Utes' raised tailgate when her radio crackled. The sound was ordinary. Then her face changed. Not much. Just enough for every trained person nearby to notice. She lifted the radio. Ashford, static answered. Then a voice I could not make out from where I stood. Lauren listened. Ranger leaned against my thigh, tired and warm. Another burst of radio noise. Lauren's eyes moved to the bushline, then to me. Copy, she said. How old? The world narrowed. Rain ticked on the Ute. Someone stopped zipping a pack. Pete's face lost colour. Lauren listened again, her jaw set. When? A pause. Last seen. The wind shifted, bringing the wet smell of eucalyptus and old leaf litter down from the gullies. I knew before she said it. Some knowledge lived in the body before words arrived. Lauren lowered the radio. A child has wandered from the Bellbird camping area, she said. 6 years old, missing 40 minutes. No one moved. Bellbird. The same bushland where Hannah had disappeared. My hand closed around Ranger's harness. He looked up at me, waiting for a signal. Lauren did not let Ranger join the official search. I knew it before she said it. I saw it in the way her eyes moved from the radio to his muddy paws, then to my face, measuring all the things I wanted against all the things the situation could not afford. No, she said. The word landed hard anyway. Rain gathered in Ranger's whiskers. He stood beside me, exhausted from training and suddenly alert, as if the change in human bodies had reached him faster than sound ever could. Around us, volunteers became purposeful and afraid. Maps came back out. Radios were checked. The ute doors opened and shut. Someone swore when their pen dropped in the wet. "A child is missing," I said. "I know." "He responds better to dogs." "He may respond better to a trained, certified search dog handled by an operational handler." Ranger found the subject 3 times today. In training. On a controlled problem, after working all morning. He can help. He can also contaminate scent, miss a cue, panic, pick up evidence, get injured, distract search teams, or lead you somewhere your grief wants to go instead of where the child is. That last part struck low enough that I took half a step back. Lauren's face tightened, but she did not apologize for accuracy. Not then. "He isn't ready," she said, "and neither are you." The worst part was that she sounded sorry. I looked down at Ranger. His eyes were fixed on me, bright and black and trusting, waiting for the world to become simple because I made a shape with my hand. Stop, search, lie down, return. If only people could be trained so cleanly. "What can we do?" I asked. Lauren's expression changed, just a little. Approval, maybe, or relief that I had not made her waste time fighting me. "You can assist at the perimeter as a support handler. Keep Ranger under control. Stay outside the active search zones unless I say otherwise. You'll help with family liaison if needed, observe wind conditions, and be available if we decide a dog presence is useful for the child once located." If located. "When?" Lauren said. It was not optimism. It was discipline. "When?" I repeated. She nodded once. "Get your wet weather gear. Water for him. High-value food. Long line. No heroics." "No heroics?" "Brittany." I looked at her. "If I tell you to step back, you step back." The Bellbird camping area was only 12 minutes from the quarry by road, but the drive stretched until it seemed to take place outside time. I followed Lauren's ute in my hatchback, windshield wipers beating hard enough to blur the bush into green-grey smears. Ranger stood braced in the back, nose lifted, reading what I could not. Bellbird. I had avoided that word for weeks. Now it waited on road signs and emergency radios and the mouths of strangers. The search base formed around the camping area with frightening speed. Police tape went up near the car park. SES volunteers unpacked equipment beneath a sagging awning. A ranger from Parks Victoria spoke with a woman wrapped in a silver blanket, though it was not cold enough for hypothermia. Her face had the blank, destroyed look of a parent whose body had not yet accepted that screaming would not bring a child back. Eli Harper, 6 years old, brown hair, blue raincoat, red gumboots. Last seen near campsite 11, following a rosella toward the creek track. Frightened of strangers. Hid when overwhelmed. Loved dogs. Every fact was a hook. Lauren took command of one corner without needing to announce herself. She asked short questions, received shorter answers, and pointed people where they needed to go. She was not the incident controller, but every person who knew her seemed to check her face as if it were an instrument panel. I kept Ranger near the edge of the vehicles, away from the main foot traffic. He wanted to investigate everyone. He wanted to be given work. He wanted, with aching sincerity, to matter. "Not yet," I whispered, though he could not hear me. A pair of volunteers passed behind us. One of them said not quietly, "Well, look at that. Lesbian Lifeline made it to the big leagues." The other laughed. "Does the dog get a rainbow vest?" My spine went rigid. Lauren, who had been studying a map with a police sergeant, looked over. "Ignore it. That's your plan." "Yes. It's a bad plan. It's the only plan that doesn't waste oxygen." She came closer, lowering her voice. Rain clung to the ends of her hair. She suddenly looked tired in a way she had not allowed herself to look at the quarry. "I'm sorry," she said. I blinked. "For what?" "That they're labeling you because of me." "Because of you?" Her jaw shifted. "I had an openly lesbian relationship here, years ago. Small towns digest facts badly and regurgitate them forever. Most people are great about it, but you can't please everyone. I stared at her, caught between surprise and the immediate urge not to look surprised, which of course made me look worse. "Oh," I said brilliantly, "it has nothing to do with you." One of the men behind us snorted. "Yeah, it does." Lauren turned slowly. He was middle-aged, wearing an orange jacket that did not fit properly, and the smug expression of someone who had mistaken cruelty for courage because he was surrounded by witnesses. "What was that?" Lauren asked. He shrugged. "Don't flatter yourself, Ashford. We heard about Brittany before she started following you around." My skin went cold. The second man grinned. "Whole town knows now, doesn't it? Poor Hannah Vale writing love notes about the dog groomer. Turns out it wasn't one-sided fantasy after all." For a moment I did not understand the words. They hit me as sounds first, then shapes, then meaning. Whole town knows. Hannah. Love notes. Dog groomer. My hand tightened so hard on Ranger's lead that he looked up sharply. Hannah never wrote letters to me," I said. It came out too quietly. Lauren moved between me and them. "Walk away." The first man lifted both hands. "Just saying." "Walk away," she repeated. This time something in her voice made them go. But the damage did not leave with them. It stayed under my skin, cold and crawling. "I never told anyone," I said again. Lauren did not ask what I meant. Her face had gone controlled in the way people became controlled when rage had to be postponed. Before she could speak, a police officer approached us. Not the sergeant Lauren had been briefing with. This one was younger, rain beading on the brim of his cap, notebook already in hand. "Brittany Colson?" My stomach dropped. "Yes." "I'm Constable Reed. We need to ask you a few questions." "Now," Lauren said. His eyes flicked to her. "Yes. There is an active search for a missing 6-year-old, and this relates to an ongoing investigation." The word investigation changed the air around me. I thought of Hannah's funeral, of her mother's white face, of casseroles cooling on counters, of people saying tragic accident in the hushed voices they used when tragedy felt cleaner than uncertainty. "What investigation?" I asked. Constable Reed looked uncomfortable, which frightened me more than if he had looked stern. "We're reviewing circumstances around Hannah Vale's disappearance and death." Lauren's posture sharpened. "This can wait." "No," he said. "It can't." He looked back at me. "We need information about why Hannah went hiking alone that day and why you didn't answer her message." My mouth opened, but no answer came. Not because I did not have one, because I had too many, because she always walked, because she was 18, because I was washing a dog, because I had been trying to create distance, because she had begun looking at me with a hope I could not allow, because I had loved her, and I had thought the most loving thing I could do was discourage her. "What message?" I asked. "The missed call, the voicemail, the text before it." "Text?" My mind scrambled. "I was working. I don't answer text when I'm grooming dogs. I check the voicemail when my workday's over." "We'll need your phone records to confirm that." Lauren stepped closer. "Constable." He ignored her. "We've taken possession of Hannah Vale's diary," he said. "It contains repeated references to you, her feelings for you, her belief that those feelings may have been returned." The ground tilted. Ranger pressed against my leg. "No," I said. The constable watched me. "No, I mean, she was 18. "I understand." "No, you don't," my voice cracked. "You don't understand anything." "Did you have a relationship with Hannah Vale?" "No." "Did she want one?" I looked toward the bush because I could not look at him. Rain darkened the trunks, wet leaves shivered in the wind. Somewhere out there a child was alone. "Yes," I whispered. "I think she thought she did." "And did you encourage that?" "No." The answer came fast, too desperate, because no was not the same as never. I had not touched Hannah. I had not kissed her. I had not said the things that burned at the back of my throat when she smiled. But had I smiled too long? Had I answered messages too kindly? Had I let her sit in the grooming shop after closing because sending her away felt like cruelty? Had I kept her near because I was lonely and she was sunlight? No was true. No was not clean. Constable Reed wrote something down. Lauren's voice was ice. This is inappropriate. Don't leave town without notifying us and gaining permission first. We need to know your whereabouts while we look further into the diary and wait on the final report. Final report? I asked. Wasn't it an accident? She got hurt and didn't get help in time. Constable Reed's expression didn't change. That was the initial assessment. Given the new information, the case has to be reviewed. My stomach lurched. I bent forward, one hand on Ranger's back, and breathed through my mouth. The second day of Hannah's search slammed into me, not as memory, as weather, cold dawn, burnt coffee, radios crackling through static, my own hands raw, from gripping a paper cup, people moving too carefully around me because by then they knew I knew her. The first day had still held noise, calling, engines, footsteps, hope pretending to be organisation. The second day changed. The radio traffic thinned. Voices lost their edges. Then one transmission came through, clipped and low, and everyone who understood searches went still. No one said body. No one said Hannah. Not at first. There had just been a silence so complete I heard a crow lift from a branch, and I knew. Before the words, before the grief, before the world ended politely around me, a hand touched my elbow. Lauren. Breathe, she said. I dragged in air. Look. I blinked until the present returned in broken pieces. Lauren's face, Ranger's ears, the police officer's wet notebook, orange jackets, blue tarp, bush. Listen. Somewhere beyond the vehicles, Eli's mother made a sound that was almost my name and not my name at all. A sound from the country of the nearly dead. Do the next useful thing, Lauren said. The words were quiet enough that only I heard them. What? Breathe. Look. Listen. Do the next useful thing. I clung to that. Not the right thing. Not the brave thing. Not the thing that would undo anything. The next useful thing. I straightened. Constable Reed was still waiting, pen poised as if my breakdown had been inconvenient but not relevant. I'll cooperate, I said, though my voice did not feel attached to me. But there is a missing child, and my dog may be able to help. His eyes shifted to Ranger. Lauren said, She remains under my supervision. That was not a request. The constable hesitated, then nodded once. We'll continue later. He left. For 3 seconds, I hated him with a purity that frightened me. Then a shout came from near the creek track. Possible item. Lauren was already moving. I followed before remembering I had not been told to. She glanced back, saw me, saw Ranger, and made a decision so fast I almost missed it. Perimeter only, she said. Long line, no independent deployment. If I say stop, you stop him. I nodded. Ranger read my body and came alive. We moved toward the creek through soaked bracken and stringy bark, keeping outside the taped line until an SES woman waved Lauren over. The rain had turned the track slick. Water ran in narrow veins down the slope. The smell rose rich and terrible from the earth, wet leaves, churned mud, eucalyptus oil, creek water, fear. My vision narrowed again. Bellbird, Hannah. Blue police lights sliding over tree trunks. My phone in my hand, Lauren's voice cut through it. Brittany. I looked at her. Breathe. I did. Look. A small group stood near the creek bank, pointing at something caught on a low branch. Listen. The creek was louder than it should have been after rain. A child could be close and unheard beneath that sound. Next useful thing. I unclipped Ranger's short lead and attached the long line with fingers that trembled only once. Lauren crouched near the object. A scrap of bright blue fabric hung on a blackberry thorn. Blue raincoat. Maybe. Ranger saw it. More than saw it. His body changed. Until that moment he had been my dog, chaotic, muddy, brilliant in flickers, carrying old damage in his bones. Then his head lifted into the wind, and something passed through him like a current. His tail stilled, his weight shifted forward, his nose worked once, twice, then held. He was not broken, he was not retired, he was not a problem to manage, he was a searcher. Lauren saw it too. Her eyes went to the wind, the creek, the slope, the density of fallen branches downstream. She took 3 seconds, maybe less. But I understood that those seconds held rules, risk, command responsibility, Eli's life, Ranger's lack of certification, my grief, the fading daylight, and the fact that children frightened of strangers sometimes hid from the people trying to save them. "Controlled track," she said. 5 meters. I'm beside you. He indicates, you hold. No rushing. I swallowed. Understood. Lauren pointed to the fabric. Let him scent it. Don't let him mouth it. I brought 2 fingers to my eyes. Watch me. Ranger looked at me trembling. Then I swept my arm toward the creek line. Search. He lowered his nose and moved. Not fast, not wild, purposeful. The long line slid wet through my gloves. Lauren stayed at my shoulder, radio in one hand, eyes scanning ahead and above and behind in a way I still did not understand. Twice Ranger veered toward the creek and corrected. Once he stopped dead near a puddle, sniffed, then dismissed it. We found the toy 30 meters downstream, a small plastic dinosaur wedged between 2 stones. Green body, yellow spikes. Lauren photographed it before anyone touched it. Then she radioed the find and shifted the search sector. Her voice remained calm. Mine would not have. Ranger sniffed the dinosaur from a careful distance, then swung hard left toward a tangle of fallen branches below the track. My heart slammed. The bracken there had been disturbed, not much. Enough for Lauren to see it, enough for Ranger to drive toward it with sudden intensity. Slow, Lauren said. I shortened the line. Rain tapped leaves overhead. Eli, Lauren called, voice lower than I expected. Eli Harper. My name is Lauren. I have a dog with me. No answer. Ranger pulled once, then dropped low, belly near the mud, trying to push beneath the branches. I gave palm down. Lie down. He obeyed, quivering. A tiny sound came from under the deadfall, not a word, a breath, a sob. My knees almost gave. Lauren crouched. Eli? You don't have to come out yet. The dog is lying down. His name is Ranger. There was a rustle. Then a small, muddy face appeared between 2 crossed branches. His lips were blue. His eyes were huge. One red gumboot was missing. Dog, he whispered. I put a hand over my mouth. Lauren glanced at me. A warning. Hold. I held. This is Ranger, she said. He's very good at staying still. Ranger blessedly stayed still. Eli reached one shaking hand through the branches. Ranger stretched his neck as far as the down command allowed and pressed his nose to the child's fingers. Eli began to cry, not from fear, from relief. Can he come here? Eli asked. Lauren's eyes flicked to the branches, assessing safety. A little. I gave the hand-to-heart signal, soft and close. Return. Ranger shifted back toward me, then I guided him around the safer side of the deadfall while rescuers moved in with cutters and blankets. When there was enough space, Lauren nodded. I released him 1/2 meter. Ranger crawled forward and lay beside Eli as if he had been trained for that exact shape of mercy all his life. The child wrapped both arms around his neck. Ranger did not move. Cameras arrived later. They always did. Phones first, then local media, then official statements. Eli was carried out wrapped in foil and blankets, crying for his mother, one hand still reaching back toward Ranger until the paramedic promised the dog could come near the ambulance. People clapped. Someone cheered. Eli's mother made a sound when she saw him that broke every person within hearing. I held Ranger's harness and smiled when someone pointed a phone at us. Then I walked behind a vehicle and fell apart. Not loudly. Not the way I had at the quarry. This was worse because it was quiet. I leaned against the cold side of an SES truck and folded over myself while Ranger pressed his muddy body against my legs. Eli had come home. Hannah had not. That was the whole wound. No amount of usefulness changed it. No amount of good done today reached backward into the bellbird bush and placed Hannah alive on the track, laughing at clouds, phone in hand, waiting for me to answer. I heard footsteps. I did not have to look to know it was Lauren. She stopped beside me, giving me the dignity of not being stared at. For a while, we listened to the search base transform itself from terror into aftermath. "He came home," Lauren said finally, "because of what you and Ranger did today." I shook my head. "Because you let us. Because Ranger found the clue. Because you held him steady. Because you did the next useful thing." My throat closed. "Hannah didn't." "No," Lauren said, "just that. No denial, no pretty lie. Hannah matters," she said. "Eli matters too." I pressed my palms into my eyes. It feels wrong. What does? That he's alive but she isn't. That I'm relieved. That for 1 second when he touched Ranger I was happy. Lauren leaned back against the truck beside me. "That isn't betrayal." "It feels like it. Grief says everything is betrayal. Eating, sleeping, laughing, wanting a future, helping someone else survive." I lowered my hands. Rain ran in thin lines down the side of the vehicle. "I can't make what happened to her not happen," I said. "No." "And if I keep standing in that day," Lauren looked at me then, not gently, exactly, honestly, "you die there too." The words should have been harsh. They were not. They were a rope thrown across distance. A lifeline, maybe. Ranger sighed and slid down until he was lying across both my boots, exhausted by heroism and weather and the unfair complexity of humans. I looked toward the ambulance where Eli's mother sat with her arms around him, rocking as if she could keep him in the world by rhythm alone. Then I looked toward the bush. Bellbird did not give Hannah back. It gave Eli back. Both things were true. For the first time, I wondered if living past the day Hannah did not come home might not mean leaving her behind. Maybe it meant carrying her differently, not as a locked door, not as a punishment, not as the missed call replaying forever in my pocket, as proof that love mattered, as warning, as work, as grief that still had to make room for breath. Lauren pushed away from the vehicle. "The police will come back." "I know." My throat tightened. Hannah and I were only friends. I made sure she knew that, even when she tried. To tell me she was an adult. Lauren's gaze stayed on mine. "We'll deal with one thing at a time." I almost asked who we meant. I did not. Because for now, it was enough that she had said it. Someone believed me. You have been listening to The Girl Who Didn't Come Home by Sapphic Shelley. About the author. Lesbian romance, mystery, and women's fiction. Sapphic Shelley writes, WLW fiction, featuring confident mature women, age gap attraction, playful power exchange, and women taking control. Her stories range from closed-door cozy mysteries with women sleuths to young adult gothic romance, women's fiction, and steamy romance. Welcome to a world where women choose desire, danger, healing, and pleasure on their own terms. Ebooks and books are published wide for your enjoyment.